The signal arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Deep within SETV's upgraded quantum array in Chile, Dr. Isabella Martinez stared at her monitors in disbelief. The pattern was unlike anything she'd seen before, precise, structured, and unmistakably artificial. But what made her hands tremble wasn't the signal's existence, it was its origin. The transmission came from just beyond Mars's orbit. Admiral Victoria Kane received the alert within minutes. In her underground office beneath the Rocky Mountains, she activated a secure quantum link to the Global Defense Council. "It's happening," she announced to the assembled holograms of Earth's military leadership. Protocol Sentinel is now active. For over 50 years, humanity had prepared in secret. What appeared to the world as normal technological progress masked a carefully orchestrated military build-up. Every satellite launch included hidden weapons. Every space station harbored naval crews training in secret. Every asteroid mining operation concealed shipyards. The signal repeated its message for 3 days. On the fourth morning, they appeared, massive ships emerging from what looked like tiers in space itself. Their designs were elegant, clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than humanity appeared to be. The alien vessels took position just beyond lunar orbit, their presence impossible to hide from Earth's population. "Send the response," Kane ordered. Earth's public channels broadcast a message of peace and welcome, while hidden defense platforms tracked every alien vessel. The deception had to be perfect. The alien commander's hologram materialized in the UN Assembly Hall. He called himself High Marshal Tyrus of the Galactic Imperium. His species was tall, with iridescent scales, and multiple eyes that seemed to analyze everything simultaneously. "We bring civilization to the primitive," he announced through advanced translation systems. "Your world will join our empire. Resistance is unnecessary." Kane watched from her command center as UN representatives played their roles perfectly, appearing scared, overwhelmed, and primitive. Meanwhile, quantum computers were analyzing every aspect of Imperial technology. Their ships' energy signatures, communication patterns, and defensive systems were all being cataloged and compared to 50 years of theoretical research. "Their shields operate on exactly the frequencies we predicted," Kane's chief scientist reported. "Every weapon system matches our projections. They haven't innovated in centuries." The Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they'd grown complacent. They expected every new species to follow the same pattern: shock at first contact, awe at their technology, and quick submission to their power. They never considered that they might encounter a species that had spent decades preparing specifically for them. In orbital shipyards disguised as debris, crews underwent final training. Weapon systems charged silently. Defense networks awakened. Humanity had learned from its own bloody history. The best way to prevent war was to be so overwhelmingly prepared that victory was assured before the first shot. High Marshal Tyrus gave Earth 1 week to surrender formally. He expected the primitive humans to spend that time in panic and chaos. Instead, Earth's apparent chaos masked perfectly coordinated preparation. Every riot was staged. Every panicked broadcast was scripted. Every sign of weakness was designed to reinforce Imperial overconfidence. On the 6th day, Kane addressed the real government, not the public facade, but the hidden council that had guided humanity's preparation for half a century. "The Empire has conquered peaceful worlds, scientific worlds, worlds that sought diplomatic solutions. They'd never faced a species that turned preparation for war into an art form. They see our satellites and think us primitive. They see our rockets and think us centuries behind them. They don't realize that everything they see is a carefully crafted illusion." The Council voted unanimously. When the Empire returned for Earth's surrender, they would learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or ships or weapons. It was the ability to appear weak while marshalling overwhelming strength. The Empire thought they were initiating a simple conquest. Instead, they were about to learn why humans smiled just before spring their traps. High Marshal Tyrus stood before the Imperial War Council, his scales shimmering with irritation. The humans had missed their surrender deadline. Worse, their primitive communications had gone silent. Even their chaotic broadcasts had ceased. Perhaps their leadership has collapsed, an advisor suggested. Many species break under the pressure of our ultimatum. But Tyrus felt uneasy. In 3 centuries of conquest, he'd never encountered a species that simply waited. Most primitive worlds either attacked foolishly or surrendered immediately. This silence felt deliberate. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Kane watched Imperial ships reposition. Their movements were exactly as predicted. The Empire hadn't changed its tactical doctrine in centuries. Every maneuver, every response, followed patterns her analysts had studied for decades. "Launch Operation Ghost Light," she commanded. Across Earth's surface, cities went dark. Power grids appeared to fail. Transportation systems stopped. To Imperial sensors, it looked like a civilization collapsing. But underground, massive fusion reactors powered hidden military complexes. In orbit, what seemed like disabled satellites were actually precision weapons preparing to fire. The Empire's initial strike force descended through Earth's atmosphere. 5,000 ships targeting major population centers. They expected panic. Instead, they found empty cities. Automated defense systems, disguised as civilian infrastructure, tracked their every move. "The humans have fled," Tyrus's second-in-command reported. "Their cities are abandoned." "No species has ever." Tyrus began, but proximity alarms interrupted him. Hidden doors in buildings and mountainsides opened. Launch tubes emerged from beneath desert sounds. What appeared to be simple office towers transformed into missile batteries. Multiple launches detected. Imperial sensors screamed. But these weren't the primitive rockets the Empire had observed. These were next-generation weapons, specifically designed to bypass Imperial shields. Kane's voice broadcast on all frequencies. "You assumed we would behave like every other world you've conquered. You thought our visible technology represented our true capabilities. That was your first mistake." The first wave of human counterstrikes devastated the Imperial formation. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds fell to weapons they couldn't detect until it was too late. Their ancient shields, unchanged for centuries, offered no protection against quantum-phase torpedoes designed specifically to exploit their weaknesses. Impossible. Tyrus raged as a third of his fleet vanished in coordinated strikes. Their technology was primitive. We saw their satellites, their rockets. "You saw what we wanted you to see," Kane replied. "While you conquered peaceful worlds, humanity prepared for war. Every primitive rocket launch tested advanced propulsion systems. Every communication satellite mapped Imperial fleet movements. Every piece of space debris contained sensors studying your technology. The Empire attempted to retreat, but discovered their hyperspace drives wouldn't activate. Hidden human platforms had created a localized field, preventing faster-than-light travel. They were trapped. "The choice is yours, Marshal," Kane announced. "Surrender and live, or learn why humanity's history is written in the blood of those who underestimated us." In that moment, Tyrus realized the Empire's fatal mistake. They had become so accustomed to easy victories over peaceful worlds that they'd forgotten a crucial truth. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator is the one that plays dead until the perfect moment to strike. The Empire's main fleet arrived in waves, 20,000 ships strong. They expected to find a broken invasion force needing rescue. Instead, they found wreckage and silence. Admiral Kane's voice cut through their confusion. "Welcome to the killing fields." The debris field from the first battle wasn't random. Each piece was positioned precisely, creating a maze of navigational hazards. Imperial ships, used to fighting in open space, found themselves confined to narrow corridors, exactly as planned. Commander Raj Singh led Earth's first strike from his stealth carrier. His ships, barely larger than Imperial fighters, carried weapons that could cripple dreadnoughts. "Remember your training," he told his crews. "Hit and fade. Never stay still. Use their size against them." The Empire's formations shattered as human vessels struck from multiple directions simultaneously. Centuries of fighting weaker opponents had left them unprepared for an enemy that refused to follow conventional tactics. Deep within an asteroid base, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka coordinated Earth's electronic warfare campaign. Her teams had spent years cracking Imperial encryption. Now they flooded enemy communications with false orders, phantom sensor readings, and coded warnings from non-existent reinforcements. The Empire's proud fleet, discovered too late that size meant nothing against an enemy who turned space itself into a weapon. Automated defense platforms hidden in asteroids launched precision strikes. Quantum mines materialized inside Imperial shield perimeters. Every attempt to regroup was met with devastating ambushes. "My lord," an Imperial captain reported to the fleet commander, "we've lost contact with the third battle group. The humans, they're not fighting like savages. Every move seems calculated, planned years in advance." He was right. Earth's apparent primitive state had been an elaborate deception. While the Empire watched humanity's clumsy first steps into space, underground factories had produced advanced warships. While they monitored Earth's primitive nuclear weapons, quantum laboratories had perfected technologies the Empire hadn't even theorized. The battle for Sol System became a lesson in human warfare. Never fight fair, never be predictable, and never reveal your true strength until it's too late for your enemy to respond. As Imperial ships fell by the hundreds, Admiral Kane prepared Earth's final surprise. The Empire was about to learn that losing the battle for Sol was just the beginning of their nightmare. Imperial High Command never saw Earth's counter-invasion coming. While their main fleet struggled in Sol, humanity launched Operation Liberation. Hidden wormhole generators, developed in secret for decades, opened portals across Imperial space. Earth's real military force, 3 times larger than the defensive fleet that had devastated the Empire in Sol, emerged into the heart of the Imperial territory. Commander Lucia Santos led the first wave, targeting Imperial shipyards and manufacturing centers. Her forces struck with surgical precision, using detailed intelligence gathered over years by human agents disguised as primitive traders. For every world you enslaved, she broadcast on Imperial frequencies, "We studied your weaknesses." For every species you conquered, we prepared their liberation. The subjugated species watched in awe as human forces dismantled Imperial defenses with impossible ease. Weapons designed to penetrate specific Imperial shield frequencies. Tactics that exploited every flaw in Imperial doctrine. This wasn't just warfare, it was the culmination of 50 years of dedicated preparation. On 12 key worlds, resistance movements, armed and trained by human operatives, launched coordinated uprisings. Imperial garrisons found themselves fighting enemies who had learned Earth's guerrilla warfare tactics. The Empire had spent centuries crushing rebellion through overwhelming force. Now they faced opponents who melted away before direct confrontation, only to strike at critical weaknesses. Admiral Kane coordinated the campaign from Earth's Quantum Command Center. "Show them why humanity turned war into an art form," she ordered. "Show them why we spent centuries perfecting the science of victory." The Empire's response was predictable. They tried to concentrate their forces for decisive battles. But human commanders refused to engage on Imperial terms. Instead, they targeted supply lines, communication nodes, and command centers. The mighty Imperial war machine began to starve. In the Centaur sector, Commander Singh's strike force encountered the Empire's elite guard. The resulting battle lasted 6 hours. Imperial crews, trained to fight by ancient doctrine, couldn't adapt to human ships that changed tactics every few minutes. Strategies developed through centuries of human warfare proved devastating against an enemy that had grown complacent through easy victories. The Empire's carefully maintained image of invincibility shattered. On 1,000 worlds, oppressed species watched human forces systematically dismantle the power that had enslaved them. Hope, long suppressed, began to spread. As Imperial defenses crumbled, Kane prepared for the final phase. The Empire would soon face a choice: surrender to humanity's terms, or watch their entire civilization fall to an enemy they had fatally underestimated. The Imperial Palace burned, not from human weapons, but from the riots of its own citizens. The truth about Earth's victory had spread across Imperial space, how a supposedly primitive world had orchestrated the Empire's downfall through decades of patient planning. Admiral Kane stood in the palace's grand chamber, facing the Imperial Council. "Your empire fell because you forgot the most important lesson of power. Never assume your enemies are weak simply because they appear to be." The terms of surrender were unprecedented. Earth didn't demand territory or reparations. Instead, humanity proposed the formation of a galactic alliance, one where all species would have equal representation. The Empire's technological knowledge would be shared, but under human oversight to prevent future conquests. Former Imperial worlds watched in amazement as human ships transformed from weapons of war into vessels of aid and reconstruction. The same precision that had dismantled the Empire now rebuilt shattered worlds. Commander Santos led humanitarian missions, showing that humanity's real strength wasn't just in warfare, but in its capacity for both destruction and creation. Earth established new defense protocols across former Imperial space. "We'll be the guardians," Kane promised the liberated species, "not your rulers. We learned from human history. True peace comes from strength shared, not power hoarded." The former Imperial capital became the seat of the new alliance. In its chambers, representatives from 100 species debated policy, while human advisors shared the lessons learned from thousands of years of human conflict and reconciliation. A year after the war's end, Admiral Kane addressed the Alliance Assembly. The Empire thought they found a primitive world to conquer. Instead, they discovered humanity's greatest truth. We are not defined by our technology or our weapons, but by our determination to defend freedom. We spend centuries fighting ourselves, learning every aspect of warfare, not because we love conflict, but because we understand that true peace must be protected by those willing to fight for it. The galaxy entered a new age. The Empire's fall revealed a truth that would echo through history. Never underestimate a species that smiles before battle, for they might just be waiting for the perfect moment to show you why they survived every war they ever fought. Under humanity's watchful protection, the alliance grew. Former enemies became allies, sharing knowledge and resources. The stars themselves seemed brighter, illuminating not an empire of conquest, but a fellowship of equals, guarded by a species that had mastered war not for power, but for peace.